Good afternoon, readers. You're mostly welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is Daniel the Lost and get ready for a new video. As you may actually notice, this is my very first video in English, as I'm much more accustomed to, talk and do my reviews, video reviews here on the channel in my native language. But I don't dislike at all the idea of creating some other videos in English, as I read so many books in original language, in the original version. And so it would be also so helpful to do it sometimes. And so, since it is my very first time speaking in my second language in a video, I really hope you're enjoying it. And if you would like to give me suggestions, I'm really open to them. You can leave it in the comments. And also, if you would like to subscribe, support the channel, you can subscribe, of course, leave some comments, some likes to the videos. And thank you in advance. I'd be pleased. Okay, great. So I say we start. Shall we? To be honest, I've been wanting to shoot this video tag for a while, but I never had the right moment to do it. So I think now it's about time. And it's dedicated to Goodreads. I think we all know as readers, the platform, the social network of Goodreads, where you can look up, you can select and add all the books you want to read and to buy. You can add them to your TBR, the to be read list, and so on and so forth. And you can always find and add some friends to your friends list, and so keep in contact with other readers and what you're doing on the social network. So it is pretty common with all the other video tags to have a list of questions you have to answer and to keep the conversation alive. Okay. So let's start with the question number 1. It is, what was the last book you marked as read? So I actually have 2 books because sometimes I used to read more than 1 book at a time. It's not something pretty common for me, but sometimes I like to do it, especially at those times, at summertime. And the 2 books I lastly read were I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. It is a very captivating book. It's not perfect. It's nothing exceptional, but I enjoy it pretty much because it's a psycho thriller, very psychological elements, with a quite interesting final twist, pretty unexpected. And I liked it because I enjoyed the idea how the author, Ian Reid, developed just a single thought to create, to sustain the story. The second book marked as read was totally different one, is Dangling Man by Saul Bellow. This is something completely different. It's a modern classic written by Saul Bellow, who also is a Nobel Prize for Literature and won many other awards, literary awards. It was pretty hard to confront. It's always hard to confront yourself with a Nobel Prize. It's pretty important. I like Dangling Man as well. There were some pretty things I didn't enjoy so much because you can see it is a debut because it was the first book by Bellow, but it was very captivating because it tried to deal with freedom, the importance of freedom of choice, and that pretty mindset. When you are suspended, when your life is a bit suspended because the protagonist is waiting, to go to enlist. To go to war, the Second World War, but in the meantime, he liked to, musing about his own past. He walks across the Chicago streets, meets many people, he discusses and argues with. So it's very important perspective that Bellow gives throughout the story. I enjoyed it pretty much. There are so many philosophical thoughts, pretty well written. The prose is very rich, so I really recommend, and I can't wait to go on with your Bellow's production and see the others masterpiece like Herzog, Seize the Day, for example, Augie March, for instance. Okay, Question number 2 is, what are you currently reading? Okay, my current read is just one book for now. It is something still different. It is The Witches of New York by Amy McKay. So, pretty actually funny story about this book, because I bought it 2 years ago when I was in New York. I bought it at a Strand bookstore, of course, the mythical, legendary Strand bookstore in Broadway. But since then, I left it. I've been leaving it on my bookshelf for a while, so I really thought that was the right moment to read it. After it, I'm liking it pretty much. I'm enjoying it. I like this kind of story, I have to confess. I love, books based on witches, mystery, especially history, when they are based on historical settings. In this case, we are at the end of the 19th century in New York. So, the legendary atmosphere of the city of wonders, of discoveries, especially scientific discoveries. And I like the way they are being treated in the novel. But, of course, the magical, the mystery element. And as I was saying, I love books based on that. Like, for example, was Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke was pretty similar to that. But I love the witchcraft element. I always loved the witchcraft element. So I can't wait to go on, and so far, so good, more than good. So the next question is, what was the last book you marked as TBR or my TBR? And it was The Taking of Jake Livingston. It's a very new release by Ryan Douglas. I'm really into that book. I'm so curious to read it because it's something pretty peculiar. You can find, the queer young adult book mixed with elements of revenge, the revenge story, ghost, so even the ghost, I love ghost stories too, and so some horror things, horror or YA, young adult elements. So that I'm really curious to read it soon. Next question is, what book do you plan to read next? Okay, so I'm a bit conflicted about this question, because I have 2 books here I really want to read next, so I had to decide in the end. The first one is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. That is really a great challenge to undertake, because, I've been wanting to read this book for ages. Because I've heard so many things about it. Most of them were good, enthusiastic. So I really can't wait to go into it pretty soon. So that could be my first choice. And the other one is another book I really wish to read soon, which is The Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall. This looks like very important book for the Victorian age, especially. Is a very one of the pioneer, on lesbian novel, let's say, in a Victorian age, and was pretty, controversial and aroused many difficult, many contrasts in the public opinion, of course, at that time, for the moral, rigidity of the Victorian system. So it was something so new and unexpected. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. And besides, I really like this edition, this vintage edition, and this cover. And the next question is, do you use the star rating system on Goodreads? Okay, so yes, I do pretty often. Although I don't like, as many of you, I presume, I don't like, the fact that we can't give any half points, 3-point half, 5.5, etc. That's, I think, I don't like at all. And I hope in the future that it will be solved, because, sometimes that it doesn't really answer to your appreciation to the book. It is important to be able to give half points. Okay, the next question is, are you doing a 2021 reading challenge? Yes, of course. I'm ahead of schedule, pretty much ahead of schedule. I'm so far at 29 out of 30, and I think I've really gone with it. I don't know to what extent, but I really think this is a good year for reading, and I try to read as many books as possible. The next question is, do you have a wish list? Actually, I prefer to use my TBR. It is much more well organized. If I have to use a wish list, I tend to do it on Amazon, because in that way it is strictly connected, directly linked and connected to my purchase list. What book do you plan to buy next? Okay, conflicted again. I think I'm looking forward to buy Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. It's the new release by this writer. I really enjoyed last year Mexican Gothic, and I can't wait to read other books, like, for example, Certain Dark Things, which I'm expecting so bad. It should come out this September, so I can't wait to read it. It's a reissue of this book, finally. But I also wish to buy The Great Believers, another book I really want to read soon. The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. But thank God, a friend of mine gave it to me recently, so that's accomplished. Okay, the next question is one of my favorite, no doubt at all. Do you have any favorite quotes you would like to share? Yes, I love quotes, literary quotes, and I love to do them. So I selected 3 different novels I really love and 3 different important quotes. Let's start by the first one. Is from Christopher Isherwood, A Single Man, a very beautiful novel, and it's the opening of the book, which is beautiful, existentialism. Waking up begins with saying am and now. That which has awakened then lies for a while staring up at the ceiling and down into itself until it has recognized I, and therefrom deduced I am. I am now. Here comes next, and is at least negatively reassuring, because here, this morning, is where it had expected to find itself, what's called at home. But now isn't simply now. Now is also a cold reminder, 1 whole day later than yesterday, 1 year later than last year. A beautiful quote from a beautiful novel, so I really recommend you read A Single Man, and also the movie by Tom Ford was incredible. The next quote is from another giant novel of the Victorian age I really love, and it's Adam Bede by George Eliot. It's not the most famous book from George Eliot, but really I love it anyway. So it is a very curious quote, because we don't have any other novels, in which the author stops, the narrative course and do some reflections, on literature and on the writer's task, the writer's job. It is chapter 17 of the second book of Adam Bede, called In Which the Story Poses a Little. This is very great, the greatness that shows the greatness of George Eliot. So I am content to tell my simple story without trying to make things seem better than they were, dreading nothing, indeed, but falsity, which, in spite of one's best efforts, there is reason to dread. Falsehood is so easy, truth so difficult. The pencil is conscious of a delightful facility in drawing a griffin. The longer the claws and the larger the wings, the better. But that marvelous facility which we mistook for genius is apt to forsake us when we want to draw a real unexaggerated lion. Examine your words well, and you will find that even when you have no motive to be false, it is a very hard thing to say the exact truth, even about your own immediate feelings. Much harder than to say something fine about them which is not the exact truth. Thus, astounding, astonishing piece of writing from an incredible, great writer and great woman of the Victorian age, especially. The other quotes, the final quotes I like to choose is from another great novel I love, which is by James Baldwin, Giovanni Surum. So, confusion is a luxury which only the very, very young can possibly afford, and you are not that young anymore. So deep, it's such a short sentence. You could say anything, on aging and the possibility to make choices as long as you age and you get older. Okay, the next question is, who are your favorite authors? Pretty difficult to answer this because I have many. For example, Victor Hugo, Dostoevsky, George Orwell, George Eliot, but I think it's pretty much hard to mention all of them because there really are so many. Okay, the final question is, have you joined any groups? Yes, to be honest, I have sometimes. And I think it's a pretty meaningful, it could be a meaningful experience if you want to share your thoughts and confronting with other people and their opinions, different opinions, to be able to compare and contrast what you've been reading and your thoughts, as long as the reading is in progress. But I really much prefer reading on my own, my individual readings, because it keeps me much more concentrated and focused. Besides, I really have my times, no deadline, and so I can really feel free and, not chained to deadlines. I'm really not so comfortable with deadlines because in life we have so many already. So when I have to read, it's something I want to do out of pleasure. Great, so that's the end of this Goodreads video tag. Feel free, of course, to let me know in the comments below what you think, your opinion, thoughts about the books I mentioned, if you read them or some of them. Until then, we'll catch up till next video. I wish you all a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.